This adventure begins as we witness thick, dark clouds gathering over the Dian dynasty, releasing streaks of red lightning. Then, a red beam erupts from the Dian, wrapped in charges of red energy. 1 hour prior, there are two men standing in front of the tied-up guy, with two more guards positioned behind. The battered man asks them why. Of Zhehong. Adding to the above, he declared that he would grant everyone a swift death and ordered his warriors to kill everyone immediately. Afterwards, Uncle Yao. He stood up and stretched his arms out to the sides to halt the attackers, and a blue shield materialized around him to keep his opponents at bay for a long time. Simultaneously, Song Tong provides Yes Xingge with a divine sun pill. Ching bites down on the pill, swallows it, and urges his uncle to hang on a little longer, little more. Closing his eyes, Ching mentally addresses the goddess of the book, questioning, "Didn't you say I would see a new power after using the pill?" Our proto has already begun to take effect, but then, why doesn't he feel anything? Immediately following those words, something in his body spasmed. We hear the voice of the goddess again, who announces that it is already here. Furthermore, Yes Xingje's body began to recover, signifying the advancement of his body hardening level. The battle has begun. Miljin's strength is now available, and Xinjie enveloped his body. A little goddess appeared on his shoulder, mentioning that the pill that ordinary martial artists can only purify over the course of a month, but our protagonist's new soul purified it in the blink of an eye. Jing responds that he is now even more convinced that this vital soul is the #1 in the world. With a single movement, Xinjie shattered the chains. Just how strong was he now? Rising to his full height, Xinjie declares that he now wants to get rid of those crazy people who are harming his loved ones, saying, "They did that," and the older man replies, "It's simple, because Zhehong, the boy standing on the right, is his real son, and the other one is just a brat." Tong and the goddess are delighted. In the very next instant, Jing knocks out the fighter with a single punch. Everyone turned to look at him. The new chapter. It begins with Ye Xing engulfed in red flames. He turns to Sang Tong, telling him to take care of Uncle Yao. After saying this, Sang Tong picked up Uncle Yao under his arm and replied that he would not move even a step away from him. At the same time, one of the guards stealthily approached Ye Xingje from behind, brandishing his sword and remarking that Ye Xingge had no time to worry about others. But No Jing is already on another level. We see him turn his gaze forward. Look forward. We see Jing grabbing the face of the offending man. With a slight movement, Jing threw the warrior aside, disarming him. We see the sword flying upward. Jing deftly picked up the sword and quickly advanced towards its former owner, who fearfully looked at his opponent. With fire in his eyes, Qing demands to know how he dares to hurt his loved ones. Then, we see Qing deliver a single, sweeping horizontal blow to disorient 4 opponents, declaring that they are all awaiting death. After the impact, one of the warriors is sent crashing through the thick concrete wall with his body that the blow caused. Surprisingly, the warrior is still in one piece, although severely injured. He can't believe how he regained his soul and how he obtained such power. Suddenly, they hear another person entering the dungeon. He states that, Yes Xingji's power is thanks to the divine sun pill. Next, we get a closer look. Born to a prostitute, he was set aside solely to help Zhehong increase his abilities in the future. Zhehong approaches the tied-up guy and tells him that everything, at the people who have arrived. It's the old man, Yes Xingji's father, who remarks that they are a little late, gesturing towards Yes Xinj. His father then says that it is he who absorbed the family treasure. Hong continues to tell the old man that he will enforce the law on his behalf and break Ye Xingge's arms and legs, Ye Xingje's legs, then mutilating him to prevent him from having more children. The old man's face, etched with judgmental wrinkles, gave Zhejian a threatening look. After saying this, Zhehong became very tense. A cold sweat appeared on his forehead as he looked inquisitively at his father and asked what he should do. The old man takes a couple of steps, points his finger at Uncle Yao, and declares that he is the one who stole the family treasure. After saying that, Uncle Yao wondered if the old man was trying to punish young Master Ye Xingge. Perhaps, by killing his uncle, he wanted to make the punishment even more. Showing leniency and taking his sword, Uncle Yao is about to commit suicide by cutting himself. Sang Tong tries to stop him, but suddenly, we see someone snatch the sword from him. Hands to Uncle Yao. It was Ye Xingge. Everyone stares at each other as he stands between friends and enemies. Ye Xingge wants to remind them that there are rules in the clan. If someone becomes the next head of the family, they can unconditionally release one of their clan members. The elder responds that is correct. As the eldest son of the family, Zhehong is the successor. Does Ye Xin want to fight him for it? We see Zhehong's surprised face. He clearly explication is true, and that they wanted to wait until he was older before consuming his soul, but they didn't expect him to have so much talent. Afterwards, Zhehong says that they expected this. A moment later, he starts to laugh. Through his laughter, he says that if the Divine Sun Pill helped him raise his cultivation to the body-hardening stage in the blink of an eye, he could deal with those pathetic soldiers from his clan, but he really wants to fight his brother alone. At the body-hardening level, with a shout of, Zhong, we see Yes Xingje pick up his Uncle Yao from under his shoulder, helping him to get up, stand on his feet, and raise his fist. Yes, Xingje turns to Zhehong and asks if he dares to fight him within a month. All the fighters present burst out laughing, saying, how could trash like Jin challenge a master? Even our prodigy would need at least 5 years to advance from the 1st realm to the 8th realm. After their words, Jin only gave them a terrifying glare. They immediately got goosebumps. Jing then started moving forward and told Uncle Yao to come with him as they walked past Zhehong just smirked smugly. Zhehong says that since his little brother wants to embarrass himself in front of the entire family, how could he possibly deny him that opportunity? Chance. In a month, he's going to kill Ye Xinghe with his own bare hands. We see the 3 of them leave the room, as Zhehong wonders which of the 2 brothers is the perceted, true genius. The next day, we shift to a wooded area with mountains painting the backdrop. Everything seems peaceful and serene. Tied-up guy not only awakened an extremely rare 9th grade, human-level soul, at the age of 13, but also, at the age of 15, joined the sect. Nothing can disturb this tranquility, but suddenly, we hear and see Song Tong being chased by a huge rhinoceros, and the scarred guy is begging for help. Observing all this from the branch of a tall tree, Yes Xingge is not going to help him at all. A frightened Sang shouts to our protagonist that he has attracted the blue-horned bull to the forest and tells the young master to kill it quickly. We see Yes Xingje get into a fighting stance and draw his sword. One more moment, and the blue horn would impale Song Tong's body, who was begging for salvation. With a swift movement, Xingge jumped from the branch of the Tong tree directly onto the rhino's back, plunging his sword into the beast's back. Fresh, red blood flowed from the resulting wound. Rising up on its hind legs, the poor animal shrieked in pain. It looked like a very serious wound. Then we see Sang Tong's face. He is very surprised. How Ye Xingge took down such an enormous beast with a single punch. A massive rhinoceros has fallen, showing no signs of life. Ye Xingge is standing on its ophterus corpse. The next chapter of our adventure begins with Ye Xingge returning his katana to its sheath, and Xingge began to thank Sang Tong for his help, for his work. His current skills are insufficient to fight a ferocious, high-level monster. If it weren't for this, Jing wouldn't have put his friend in danger. Sang Tong, who was lying on the ground, began to explain that there was no need to thank him. Compared to our protagonist, largest within a 100-mile radius, and became a genius among geniuses. Zhang whispers in the tied-up guy's ear, thanks to your hard work during these, his exploits were insignificant. Earlier, Jing tried to say something to Song Tong, but there was no stopping his incessant chatter. Song Tong continues, and tells the young master, hurry and collect the core. Perhaps the new heavenly writing spirit will absorb the power of the elixir and the monster core, and become. Our proto will become even stronger. Jing began to absorb the blue rhinoceros core, which was far superior to the ferocious beasts they had killed previously. The young master will be able to increase his strength. We see Jing begin to collect the heavenly life soul, with young Sang Tong observing him from behind. Process. A blue energy mass from the enormous rhinoceros appeared in Jing's hand. Extracting a new core by hand is much cleaner than dealing with level 1 cores. Yes, Jing envelops it in flames. Once the beast core is refined, its power immediately erupts. Therefore, Ying offers to learn how to harness its power. He heads towards a huge rock and destroys it with a single blow. What power! Fragments of stone flew towards Jing's face, and he covered his eyes to protect himself. Strength 3,500, Yin Sung Tong says, amazed. Rock fragments are still falling when suddenly someone unknown says, all Ye Xinghe did was break a damaged stone. Is that really so surprising? Our protagonist turns around to see who it is. They were 2 guys previously unknown, and they say that Jing, the famous genius of the Lin Yun clan. How can such an insignificant thing make him happy? The second guy responds that the soul and body of 18 years old, and now he can savor such a delectable Alma today. A wicked smile crept across the bound man's face, but a moment later, he was already beginning to manda. Our protagonist have been destroyed. and he is no longer the same as before. The red-haired guy is surprised. So, Ye Xinghe is just an invalid now. Sang Tong grabs the redhead by the chest, asking him who he thinks he is to say such things, and that he is nothing but trash, just like his family. However, the redhead simply laughs in response and pushes Sang Tong away. A conflict seems to be brewing as the redhead begins some kind of invocation. A magical sign with a phoenix inside appears in the sky. From this sign emerges an orange-red eagle that seems to invoke magic. The redhead declares that they are no match for him. He then asks Sang Tong if he still desires to fight after summoning a level 4 spirit. With a swift movement, Sang Tong hides behind Ye Xingge's back. He seems a little scared, but soon, unfazed, Sang Tong turns to Jing and tells him that the people who have come are very angry. In response, Jing simply slapped himself in the face. He didn't expect that at all. The two guys who entered started laughing. They thought that Sang Tong was a fierce warrior who was willing to defend his master's honor, but it turned out he was a loser hiding behind trash. Jing began to cover himself in flames and shielded Sang Tong with his hand. It seems a fight is about to start. Jing is very angry and asks Gao Hu what his problem is, and when he gave him the right to insult his people. We see again. Laugh. The evil smile morphed into a mocking sneer as he turned his gaze towards his father, saying that when he was lacking clothes and food, his father bought clothes and Gao Hu, who continues to mock our heroes and offers to give him a beating if he can, but he wasn't allowed to finish speaking because Xingge quickly approached. Gao punched him right in the face. With that attack, Gao Hu was sent flying and spinning. There was no need for theatrics as he landed just a few meters away. Gao Hu wondered if his proto-soul wasn't completely exhausted. How could Sang Tong be so strong after that? Sang Tong became cheerful and began mockingly asking Gao Hu how he could possibly be defeated. We can see how damaged Gao Hu is. He's even missing a tooth. Gao Hu shouts for the eagle to kill and peck at all those heartless bastards. He really hopes it can do it, but our proto remains unfazed. He responds that he will not be intimidated by a level 4 spirit. Ye Xingge's hand is concentrating energy at the same time that the eagle prepares to pounce on our proto. We see the whips of fire heading towards the eagle, and Jinky remarks that this is an example of a truly powerful spirit. The eagle then emitted a shriek. Furious, the fiery whips have already engulfed the eagle's legs. Jinky comments that the process of devouring the first fragrant soul has been completed. Successfully, we then see that the eagle is already completely enveloped in fire. Next, the eagle's body is completely absorbed by Ye Xinghe. The eagle's life energy was absorbed by Ye Xinghe. Gao Hu is completely frustrated. He can't understand how it happened, or how our prototype brought food. Even though the status they gave her was lower than that of a maid, today, this soul is enough to repay the life he has. The boy tied to absorbed its spirit. The other guy also shares the same misunderstanding. After saying that, Gao Hu collapsed powerlessly. The poor guy had suffered a lot. Sang Tong immediately decided to mock him, saying derisively, "This is what happens to those who provoke your young master." Xingge simply turns around and walks away. Next, Xingge tells Sang Tong to help him find a secluded place because it seems something has happened to his inner Tao. Our protagonist needs to meditate for a while, and Sang Tong replies that he will take care of it. After a while, Sang Tong says that he has found a cave where our protagonist can relax and fully concentrate on cultivation. We see Ye Xing sit in the lotus position and begin to meditate, at which point, Sang Tong stood guard to protect his master. Xingge finds himself in the world of his temple, but something has changed within his inner Tao. He suddenly wears a surprised expression as the scene shifts to reveal a massive tower, wreathed in chains and golden dragons. Qing is confused as to why it has appeared. A gigantic pagoda resides within his inner Tao. We return to Jing's soul temple and see him heading directly towards the tower's entrance. With deft movements, our protagonist traverses a massive chain that stretches skyward. Next, we see Wei Xingge land on one knee with relative ease after a powerful leap, before standing up straight. Our protagonist then looks up, taking in the sheer size of the structure. His father shouted. The bound man yells that he disowns his name, that he is no longer his son. Next, we see Zhehong's face, and he says that since his dear brother is. After observing the new tower up close, a bell suddenly tolls. Qing volunteers to enter. Abruptly, a goddess materializes near our protagonist's ear. Petite? She begins to whisper something in Ye Xingge's ear, who immediately turned pink with embarrassment. This is the sacred book of the Tower of the Gods, the blonde said with a smile. Embarrassed, Ye Xingge covers his face. Disliking this, Ye Xingge bared his sword and threateningly asked her to stop. Appearing out of nowhere, the little goddess responded embarrassedly, Aren't all noble and rich men supposed to give their swords to women, Ye Xingje? He sheathes his sword. Standing with his back to the girl, he told her to stop bothering him and tell him exactly where the Tower of the Gods was located. The gods. As we flew closer to the tower, the little goddess explained that the Tower of the Gods was guarded by a sacred book of souls. He could reach her. Absorbing the first pill and being inside the tower would help our protagonist reach the peak of martial arts. And furthermore, there were many medicines there, but mysteriously, the girl stopped. Whether it's true or not, Jing can obtain them by relying on his skills and bravery. He looks inquisitively at the girl, asking what she means, but it's too late to ask anything. In an instant, the girl has already disappeared. Ching tries to stop her, asking what she meant by that. Near the tower, a strong wind began to blow. Ching doesn't understand what is. Abyss of clouds, and strikes a house. The scene shifts, and we see a woman perched in a tree, observing the event. She exclaims that it's damn lightning. We then see a beautiful, so impatient, Zhehong's hand extracts his soul, and his brother declares that he can't wait any longer. Following this action, we see the soul of the tied man enveloped in energy. Happening. Clenching his fist, Jing reflects on the fact that his father and brother have taken away his spirit, but he can still increase his strength, and protect what he values most. Raising his proto-hand forward, the entrance to a huge tower opens up. We see that some kind of energy lurks behind the door. At the same time, Jin says that the worst part of his life is already over, and that he no longer has anything to fear. We then see how Jin begins to enter the tower with slow steps. At the very moment that the torches ignite with blue flames, walking a little further, our proto sees a skeleton, sitting on a throne. It seems that a massacre is about to begin. The shot changes, and we see a skeleton sitting closer, with blue fire in its eyes. The inscription on his throne says that this is the necropolis of the dragon and the elephant. After reading the inscription, Ye Xingge states that this ancient treasure must be the dragon and the tiger technique, which he had used. Before that, he had died suddenly. We heard a noise, and our protagonist turns around to see what's going on. Suddenly, from underground, a long creature bursts in, throwing Jing to the side. After the impact, Jing slips but manages to land with his sword already drawn. A huge snake. Blue appears before our eyes. How can we defeat such a monster? Yesin says it is a CU-level monster, a royal python. Next, the blue monster bares its fangs and prepares to attack. The new chapter begins as we watch the battle continue. Jing comments that this huge, yellow, a fountain of blood gushed from the tied-up man's mouth. He was clearly very ill from holding the soul in his hands, and now, it's said to be the soul of alchemy. Snake weighs more than 10 tons and has deadly venom, while our protagonist can only lift 2 tons. We see Yesin and the royal python preparing to attack. Who will emerge as the victor in this fight? Next, our protagonist leaps forward to confront the attack of a huge snake, remarking that this beast appears to be quite dangerous. Jingei is already dangerously close to the royal python's mouth. Just a moment more and he will be swallowed whole. Our protagonist is about to risk his life. A moment later, we witness the snake swallowing our protagonist. Is this the end of our story? It's been a fun ride. Yojingei's body is now moving through the digestive system of a royal python. Suddenly, we notice from the snake's facial expression that something is amiss. It's clear that a threat is looming over it. Next, we get a glimpse of what's happening below. From the snake's snout, something has begun to protrude. It seems Yes Shinge is still alive. A second later, the bulge began to bulge even more. The skin would almost burst. And in the sequel, our protagonist is outside the royal python's body. A huge wound appears on the monster's body. It's surely fatal. We see Yes Xingje's joyful face. He seems satisfied to have been able to defeat such a beast. Upon landing on the ground, our protagonist concludes that to defeat a snake like this, all it takes is an incision below its neck. The royal python fell to the immortal, a golden tripod with a dragon pattern, one of the finest in Qingyun City, belongs to him from this day forward. The next chapter, the ground was lifeless. Such a terrifying beast was defeated in a matter of seconds. We see Xingge sheath his katana, saying that he didn't just kill royal python, and he also obtained the core of a rank 4 monster. In our hero's hand, there's a drop of royal python energy, emerald color. Jing begins the energy harvesting process. Waves of yellow energy begin to form around him. 4 tons, 5 tons, 6 tons. The strength of our protagonist reached 7 tons. He achieved an advancement through 3 levels. His hand was covered in fire again. A beam of energy, burning fire erupted from Yes Xingji's hand, and pierced through the concrete wall, as if it were made of straw. Jing reflected on the fact that, although he had regained some of his former power, at this rate it would take more than a month to fully recover. Suddenly, something happens behind him. Jing is given. Turning around, our protagonist discovers an even larger Fire King python behind him. A look of horror spreads across Jing's face. Sweat beading on his skin, our protagonist explains that the soul of a king python has appeared before him. Drawing his sword from its sheath, our protagonist adds that high-level monsters have the ability to create a monster soul, which is 10 times more powerful than normal. Behind Jing appears Helga, the blonde woman they met previously, and she asks if he's scared, reassuring him that he shouldn't be, because she will take care of everything. Now, after taking Ball, it begins with us seeing the emaciated face of a man who is tied up. Meanwhile, his father simply laughs, mockingly, amused by what is happening. Flight. He also mentions that after a long battle, he was fortunate enough to encounter a monster soul. Thanks to it, they will be able to level up. The goddess easily approaches the spirit that appeared. Ye Xingje simply watches with a questioning gaze, once again realizing the significance of what is happening. We see the little goddess begin to recite a spell, using the celestial book from which the spirit of the royal python emerges. She is dead, enveloped in golden rays emanating from the book. The energy is so powerful that even Jing covers his face to protect himself. Jing listens to the words of the two and removes his hands to look. We see a smile on the little goddess's face as she says, "It has been a success." A cheerful Ye Xingge asks if his soul has reached the second level. Furthermore, he asks the little goddess, as it seems that as long as he finds his spirits, his spiritual and physical strength it will grow, flying closer to our protagonist. He replies that it's exactly as he said. Souls are an important catalyst, but only those from high-level or special monsters. Level or special monsters, but the young master will also need to practice his attacks. Yixinghe responds that he doesn't need to be told about such trivial things, and asks him where the treasure he was talking about is. The little goddess, slightly excited, tells her master not to worry, because she has not lied. The treasure is right behind him. Helian Daoyi decided to leave Xinghe alone with the ancient martial arts book. Our protagonist humbly. Next, we see Zhang put his hands together in a kind of sign and begin to absorb his brother's soul. A golden soul clot moves into, crossed his hands and closed his eyes. Xinghe thanks Mr. Skeleton for safeguarding the book. The young fighters will train harder, praising his name. We see a book lying in front of the skeleton. Yes, Xingge reaches out and grabs the book, which has the dragon elephant written on it. It's the treasure that was promised to our protagonist. He opens the book and notes that it's called The Dragon Elephant and is divided into 3 parts. The first part of the book teaches cultivators the power to become as powerful as a mammoth. The second part reveals the wisdom of the sea dragon, helping one understand its mind and form. The last part combines the 2 previous elements. Xingge is very surprised. A force of 10 tons in the first stage is comparable to a rank 9 cultivator. Wow, so our protagonist only has to master the first part in 1 month. Just 1 month. Jinky's eyes light up with interest. He believes he now has a chance if everything is going well. After his studies, our protagonist had advanced to the next stage of cultivation and was ready to proceed to the next level. Somewhere in the on the outskirts of the city, Yes Xingje and Song Tong were walking. Our 2 friends have arrived at an abandoned house. Song Tong speaks to his master, telling him. He says that this is Lindsay's house. After she broke off her engagement, she was expelled from the city and sent to this country house by her uncle. We see that Jinj has lost the power of speech. After a while, our protagonist spoke, and from his words, we learned that he previously considered this place his home. We see Zhang's abdomen. Then, after his triumphant shout, Zhang fell to his knees. We realize it's over. He has consumed his soul. We see the face. Flashback from 5 years ago. Little Yes Xingj was soaking raw potatoes in the rain. What a shame. Since his childhood, his father and brother neglected our forter. Proto was always hungry and homeless. We see the boy sitting at the door of a temple when someone suddenly approached the young Yes Xingge. He raised his head to look at the newcomers. Behind Yes Xingge was a tall man holding an umbrella, behind which a girl was hiding. Who? She looked like Proto's future bride. That man was Su Yan. He was the first person to treat Yes Xingge with kindness, not only allowing Proto and his sister Ling Shi to live in his house, but also offering to marry his daughter, Su Qianshu, to him. However, after the downfall, she was the first to abandon Yes Xingja after reading the letter sent by Zhehong. She broke off the engagement, but this only proved that she didn't love Proto, but his. Glory of Genio, we return to the present timeline. Sang Tong pats his friend on the back, telling him that Ye Xingge is too young to be sad. People who spend their lives in idleness and without suffering are immature. The young master shouldn't associate with them. Yi Xingge didn't like hearing this at all, and glared furiously at his friend. Sang Tong is so damn brave today that he even dared to pat our protagonist on the head. Ye Xingje's ward flees, terrified, and asks Shishi for help because his older brother wants to hit his friend. We see Sang Tong running away, and Ye Xingge starts to chase after him, shouting at the fleeing figure too. The guy is exhausted, sweat pouring down his face, and his eyes are hollow. Zhehong turns to Ye Xingge and says, "From today onwards, I will stop." Suddenly, someone stops our duo and orders them to stop fighting. The new chapter begins with Ye Xingge realizing that he recognizes the voice. Someone is doing something nasty to her little sister. It seems these people are trying to kill her. We see a group of people in an old house. Uncle Yao is being beaten, and Ye Xinghe's little sister is crying and begging the fighters to stop. The house is in chaos. One of the aggressors bend down and tell the girl that if she wants them to stop hitting her, she has to do what they say. The girl looks at the beaten Uncle Yao and his little eyes. They were filled with tears again, but Uncle Yao started being kicked once more. His face showed he was suffering greatly. More tears. They start running down Linxi's cheek. She begs them to stop hitting her uncle and begins to undress. What are these bastards up to? And where's her brother? Suddenly, Jing bursts into the room, yelling that his little sister doesn't need to get naked. Everyone stares at the guy who has barged in, Linxi. He starts yelling at his brother to stop the attackers. They want to beat Uncle Yao to death. Our protagonist's body began to be covered in flames. As soon as they dared to attack his family, they would be in trouble. Jing punches one of the fighters right in the face. The punch was so strong that he sent him flying through the air. Upon landing, the fighter crashed through the wall. He was in a lot of pain and shouldn't have been acting up. The other combatants will be replacing him as the clan's top genius. It would be a terrible waste to leave your brother in this dungeon, especially since he can't recover his soul. Are shocked by the strength of our protagonist. They don't understand. Weren't his Dantians destroyed? How could he have become so strong? Jing doesn't understand either, how they recognized him. In response, the warriors in white and green uniforms state that our protagonist ate and slept in their house for 5 years. So how could they possibly, too, forget his face? They came to collect their dues, and how dare he hit one of them? With a slight, satisfied smile, Ye Xingge clarifies if they've come for the money. One of the warriors tells the head of the Ye family that Ye Xingje has been destroyed, so they have come here to take his sister, sell her. The defeated warrior asks how Ye Xingge dared to kill Sang Tong, and Linxi looks at him questioningly. The warrior continues, saying, "Isn't it shameful that our protagonist insults the family that took care of him? What a fool." This family, amidst Ye Xingge's aggression and gaslighting, appears to be a sensitive subject for our protagonist, who turns to the liar warrior. Why should he be ashamed? They aren't some pathetic, scummy family, always intimidating the weak. The beaten man has no words to oppose him, only able to make pathetic noises. Jinka presses on the mocking shoulder of the guy sitting near the wall, saying he won't kill him because our protagonist wants to plant something in their heads. Our protagonist takes out his sword from its sheath and leans towards the warrior. In a low voice, he tells him to go back and tell them. The debt he incurred was convenient when our protagonist was young and foolish. Leaning in closer, Zhang whispered that he had something even more important to say. A few days ago, I already spread the word that his life and soul were lost. Now he has realized his mistakes, but if they dare to offend his family, our protagonist leans down even further and makes a cut on the guy's face, and continue. If one Jinj comes, he will kill him. If two come, he will kill them as well. The seated warrior began bowing frantically, saying that he would relay the message. The message as soon as possible. Jinj is ordering everyone to leave immediately. In an instant, all the attacking men were retreating behind the door. The courage from before had completely vanished, revealing how much of it had been a farce. We see Sang Tong attempting to assist Uncle Yao. Jing orders him to put his uncle to bed and give him medicine. A small hand tugged on Jing's kimono to get his attention. Jing looks down at the girl. Linxi stretches out her arms, asking her older brother to hug her. A blush is clearly visible on our protagonist's face. He's a little embarrassed. All right, so our protagonist picks her up. Gently carrying their little sister in their arms, they begin to laugh happily. It seems like they haven't seen each other in a long time. Lingxi asks if she is heavy, and then, the older brother hugs his sister and tells her that he will never leave her in trouble again. Lingxi replies that she is not angry, because, as long as her brother is here, she will never be afraid again. But suddenly, the girl's condition worsened, and she can't even speak. Lingxi fainted in her brother's arms. It seemed to be sick. After saying that, Jing seemed to realize something. A look of dismay could be seen in his eyes. The girl's temperature dropped, had been extinguished. His fiancée was the first to send a letter of condolence, which stated, Yi's elder brother, since ancient times, plummeting rapidly. Ye Xingje put her hand on her sister's cheek. It turns out that Lin Shi has the ice disease, but for some reason it has returned. It didn't help him. The medication. The new chapter opens with Ye Jinghe discovering that the medicine has been tainted by the Su family's conflicts, which fills him with rage. Our proto-body is engulfed in red flames. Song Tong and Uncle Yao are observing this and are deeply concerned. The color of the flame then shifts from red to ox, blue. The face of a demon manifests behind Xinghe. He vows to make Su Yan pay dearly. In the blink of an eye, the girl vanishes from our proto's grasp. We see Song Tong quickly taking Lin Shi away. He urges his young master not to lose control and frighten the girl. A surprised Xinghe is standing in the background. After Song Tong puts the girl to bed, he makes a very simple observation. All protagonists seem to have a sister afflicted with ice disease, which is a side effect of not being the chosen protagonist, and apparently, Yesh Ine is unable to notice the breaking of the fourth wall. Song continues and asks the young gentleman to remain calm, stating that logically, they should visit the pharmacist. Jing responds that he has a reason. To begin, they need to find some spirit flame herb for his little sister. Our protagonist acquired quite a few rare materials during the battle with the royal python, which might be enough to strike a deal with the pharmacist. Then, our protagonist rushes out into the street, telling, girl dressed in oriental attire. She is visibly troubled, with her hands encircled by an emerald snake. Subsequently, she dispatches an eagle carrying a message. Being closely united was very important for marriage. Today, he has fallen and can never rise above her. We see this woman is only concerned about her reputation, Song to take care of his little sister and Uncle Yao, and that he will try to return as soon as possible. We then see our protagonist heading somewhere, and we find ourselves in the Jinyang city. Our protagonist stands before a pharmacy, rumored to be the largest apothecary established in Danyang by the Herb King himself. Rumor has it that the most talented alchemists reside here, so perhaps they would accept such a rare material obtained from the royal python. Upon entering the pharmacy, Xinghe is greeted by an employee who asks what the young gentleman is looking for, medication or enhancement pills. When the young worker suddenly recognizes our protagonist, he looks surprised. After a brief pause, the worker continues, Are you young Master Xinghe of the man with the bracelet apologizes for his poor manners and his stupidity. Nowadays, however, our protagonist is too poor, and not even a warrior, so he can't. He has the right to enter the King of Herbs company. The pharmacy employees have blocked the entrance with their bodies. Then the boys. They began to openly bully and insult Yes Xingj, telling him to get lost and not interfere in their business. A caustic smile forms again on Jing's face. These guys look down on people. Jing takes a flower from his pocket, saying he'll go to another store to sell this rare material. To say everyone around him is surprised is an understatement. The redhead behind the counter is the most surprised of all. He agrees to bear the blame for destroying their marriage. From this moment forward, they are no longer a couple. This girl is truly a next. The words color, smell, golden veins swirled through his thoughts. Just a second later, the red-haired guy was already kneeling in front of Jing. It turns out to be an incredibly rare fourth-level spiritual flower, the black jade lotus. At the same time, the redhead glares furiously at his subordinate, Jing. He colors his nose with a smug expression. At that very moment, the guy behind the counter delivers a solid, satisfying punch to one of his employees in the face. While beating his subordinate, he reprimanded him, asking how they could treat honored guests that way, how he dared to stop their VIP client, and muttering something about interfering with business. How quickly the redhead changed his tune. After the beating, the redhead turns to our protagonist and apologizes for his subordinate's discourtesy. He hopes that the young gentleman is still willing to sell them the flower. Jing offers a price of 5,000 silver coins. The seller, the redhead, agrees with our protagonist. It seems that after his past failure, he now agrees to anything. The seller asks the young gentleman to enter the room and wait while they prepare the silver. We ended up at Yao Wang's pavilion, where Yi Xingje is waiting to be paid. Sitting at a table, the waitress has served him tea. Sipping tea, our protagonist reasoned that 5,000 silver would be enough for 10 copies of flame grass and 10 thorns, which would be sufficient for 3 months. Suddenly, someone enters the pharmacy and greets Yi Xingge. An angry expression appears on our protagonist's face. We see Zhihong grab Shin's head and declare that his very soul and his marriage are ruined. If I were in his place, I would be so. He seems to recognize that voice. 3 faces that were once familiar appear before Yi Xingge: a former fiancé, his father, and his little brother. Jing asks the head of the family what this means. If they've come for money, the younger brother, not letting him finish his sentence, immediately. He asks, and Ye Xing is embarrassed by his behavior. If it weren't for the pharmacy salesman, they wouldn't even know that their master's treasure had been stolen and eaten by our proto. The fat boy points at Ye Xing, who is crouching in a cool pose. Our proto was just wondering if they were sure if he had stolen his medicine. Here, the red-haired vendor had already joined the conversation, saying, "Exactly. This treasure was made of demonic lotus, which can only be found in places where strong monsters live. Their cultivation level would never be enough to kill even a single monster." The boy, Gordo, understands and says that his master plucked this lotus flower from the monster's clutches. Jin's ex-fiancé supports the accusations, and even father is. He confronts our protagonist, saying he never thought the young man they raised for so many years would turn out to be such a schemer. And here, but suddenly, something shook the infernal family. But everything becomes clear as soon as we see Yes Shinj, who seems to be enjoying himself as he picks his teeth with a toothpick. And why are you all silent? Our protagonist, bored, has started picking his nose. He asks Mr. Nina to serve him some tea because his ears have ashamed that I would have bitten my tongue and committed suicide a long time ago. After he says that, Jie Shin's eyes turn red, but Jie Hong becomes stiff. The family head started yelling at Yes Xing for not paying attention to him. In response to this, our protagonist he asked that I stop acting the part of a gentleman. It feels as if our protagonist is watching a fantastic performance. Perhaps everyone should become an actor. Jessing suggests putting everything on display for everyone to see. Then, Yes Shin takes a sip of tea and turns his attention to the redhead, asking why he brought the entire family along. What? All this over some flowers and 5,000 silver coins? How petty can you get? In response, Mr. Ning became offended and disgusted, and he asks our protagonist to stop insulting people left and right. Sinister. Given Yes Xing's cultivation level, it's unrealistic that he defeated the guardian monster. He must have stolen something. Getting up, Xing summarized that from his words, he was convinced that he was on Su Yan's side all along. If our protagonist can defeat Su Yan, then that will confirm his abilities. Ying points to the infernal family. Waving his hand in response, the fat younger brother laughed furiously. Su Yan says that if our protagonist can defeat him, the lotus, it will be yours. Su Yan's father also doesn't believe that Jing can defeat his son, but our protagonist wasn't used to waiting even a second. He had already landed a hit on the puffin's face. After the hit, Yes Xingge says that he will hit whoever deserves it, and Su Yang is going too far. How noble. The father and Su Yan's sister are in complete shock. Then, in an agitated tone, the father and son simultaneously ask, "How dare you?" Intends to continue. He also says that the tied-up boy's little sister is so beautiful and tender that he has already sent someone to find her. When he dare to use the hand you pick your nose with to fight? Su Yan sits on the floor, covering her nose. Jing deduces that he can add one time. But after saying these words, a fire ignited in Su Yan's eyes. He was furious. Then, the fat boy's entire body was engulfed in fire. The concrete floor beneath him began to crack and break apart. We see Su Yan in a fighting stance, about to strike the fire tiger, yelling at our protagonist to stop acting so arrogantly, because he's no longer the genius he once was. Just as the fat boy's fist was about to connect with our protagonist, Yes Xingge simply caught it with his hand, completely dissipating all of the energy. Su Yan's face showed utter bewilderment. How could it be that Yes Xingge wasn't hurt at all? In response to the attack, Yes Xingge simply laughed and asked, "Is this the full extent of the Su family heir's strength? A feline power strike, without offending Su Yan. It seems our protagonist is plotting something, and we shouldn't have started all this." Jing kicks the fat boy in the stomach, and his expression changes. He died instantly from the impact of the blow. Our protagonist adds that, even now, As a genius, Suyan will never reach his level. Blood gushed from the fat boy's nose, and he even crashed into the wall. His worried older sister and father immediately rushed to his side, who was surprised that his son was at the 4th level of cultivation, but even he was no match for our protagonist. Next, we see the concerned face of returns home. He will take care of her, but he wasn't able to finish speaking. Jay Shin bites Jahong's hand. Fresh blood spurted from the newly formed wound. The red-haired salesman. Jinky places his hand on Mr. Ning's shoulder, getting as close to the salesman as he can, and tells him that the matter was already settled and had to hand over his money. The red-haired salesman produced 5,000 silver notes. Ye Xingge abruptly snatched the money from the redhead's hands. Well, that's fair. After our protagonist counted the money, the red-haired salesman requested that he provide a demonic lotus. Yi Xingge reflected on something for a moment. It seems the conflict is ongoing. With a skillful motion, Ye Xingje scattered the money across the room. Then he declared that he would not sell them the demonic lotus. Mr. Ning used to be kind to our protagonist and his sister, but today he insulted him and accused him of theft. Now he owes him nothing. Addressing the departing Ye Xingge, he stated, "From now on, you are my enemy." Mr. Ning stared at Ye Xing's retreating figure, completely puzzled by what was happening. His daughter immediately ran to him and tried to calm him down, saying that yes, Xingje's soul had been abandoned, but he was still incredibly strong. He feared that he and she would not be able to cope, and that there was no chance of victory. He kept looking at his father and saying that his actions lately probably weren't right at all, and they weren't. Mr. Ning could only remain silent at this question, as he had nothing to say, but the girl kept asking the same thing, whether they were doing the right thing or not. This made Mr. Ning quite angry, and he made a face. In retaliation, Zhang kicks the bound man and exclaims, "This idiot still dares to resist." Blood spurts from Jehong's lips from the impact, scared, and said that Jing had no chance of surviving. Then he sent his daughter somewhere. The image cuts to the house where Sang Tong was very glad that the young master had brought back so many treasures. Not only was there the spirit flame herb to heal Shire, but also so many high-level beast cores. Ye Xinghe was treating Xier while Shang Tong was examining the animal cores. The only thing the guy didn't like was their low purity. And our protagonist fed the girl, replying that the old man was willing to exchange more than 30 beast cores with him, variegated, and 10 spiritual flame grass pillars, which was already very good. Jing also mentioned that his black jade demonic lotus was only worth 5,000 silver coins, but what the old man gave him was already worth more than 10,000. Song sat in the chair and couldn't believe such sums, so he asked Jing why, that the old man was being so kind to him. Jing blew on the spoon to cool the contents before feeding the girl, then replied that it probably was, because the old man simply wanted to establish a good relationship, and he decided to recount the story of how they had met the old man. It all began when our protagonist left the pavilion and encountered an elderly man with gray hair and a white beard. The old man introduced himself, saying he was Wei Dan Yun from Xinyang Province, Yao Chai, and added that he was willing to accept a black jade demonic lotus from a young master in exchange for 10,000 silver coins. Our hero then asked, clearly, it wasn't a weak attack. How is he still conscious? We see Xingge's hand engulfed in flames. He shouts that he's going to kill his brother, the gray-haired old man, if he happened to be from the alchemist clan. The old man explained that, since Yi Xingge had previously awakened a purple gold cauldron with a dragon pattern, a treasure difficult for us tribe alchemists to awaken. We have all heard the name of Jing. Now that the young master needs to sell medicine, it would be advantageous for them to establish a good relationship with him. Jing was a little embarrassed, even. He started sweating. He answered the old man that yes, he didn't know his soul was dead. The old man approached the protagonist and replied that he knew. However, he thinks that the young master's potential is even better now than it was before. Then, the old man took our young master to Xinyang Market. Also, grabbing the guy by the collar, the old man asked him to meet again in Tongwu County, the largest city nearby. We felt resentment in the room. The speaker, holding his chin and wearing a pensive expression, concludes that the old man is actually an NPC guide. Then, he put his hand on Ye Xingge's shoulder and said, "Young master, it seems that once the tasks in Danyang County are finished, you'll need to head to Tanggu County." These words took the protagonist by surprise. Then, our protagonist got out of bed, and Sang Tong leaned in towards the ailing woman and told Ye Xingge that he would first take Shera to the makeshift cabin built by his foolish uncle. Ye Xingge was quite surprised to hear these. Just as his hand suddenly stops in front of his face, a plea to stop comes from behind Hong. Zhehong looks. Words. Finally, the guy added that the young master had spoken harshly to Su Yanni's family for no reason. The Su family will definitely come to deal with him tonight, but they should go out first so as not to attract attention. Our protagonist asked the outgoing person why he wanted them to wait there. He responded that he was not a danger to others. Next, our protagonist sat down and cultivated. More than 30 beast cores were absorbed by him, and the heavenly book soul had successfully ascended to the third level of the human stage. But suddenly, something strange happened again. Our hero was once again sitting in the square of the Taoist palace. There was no fear in his eyes, and he guessed that something might be happening now. But what? When he looked up, he was stunned. An enormous yellow eye was right in front of him, staring intently at our protagonist. Our protagonist immediately broke out in a sweat. He felt an extraordinary fear, immediately stood up, and drew his sword while saying, "Heavenly Book Soul, this is the monster from the Tower of Gods and Demons." Suddenly, a flying girl appeared behind him and uttered, "Oops, Jing." Why did he always want to fight? He asked him to lower his sword and explained that the eye was his second soul. With a surprised expression, Proto questioned the girl. Was it really his second soul? She responded with a smile, confirming that it was. As a master's level of devouring increases, new vital souls awaken, back to see who dared to stop him. This mysterious savior is Sung Tong, but Hong isn't surprised. He says he's a half-breed that Ye Shinge, new vital souls. He couldn't believe it. Could his vital soul not only improve, but also awaken a new vital soul? This was truly unbelievable. I had never felt such power before. The girl was also happy for him, and told Jing, they are no good. After their conversation, the flying girl said that he would fly out of the Taoist palace to test his strength. In the end, he bid farewell to his master. Then, our protagonist woke up in a completely different place. Different. He was greatly surprised by what he saw before him. It turned out to be his spatial desktop ability. He could see the house through the roof. His third eye opened. Is this truly the soul ability, new life? But then he focused his attention on something strange. He noticed something in his peripheral vision. He looked at the woman's silhouette, which was clearly outlined and visible thanks to the light of the full moon. Then, a girl with ulterior motives, clearly displaying hostile intent, she landed on the ground in front of him. He immediately reached for the sword at his waist and drew it. He asked, "Are you Master Yeshinj?" The protagonist didn't hesitate for long before sheathing his sword. Anticipating the battle, he pointed his sword toward the girl and asked if she had been sent by the Su family to kill him. She replied that the young master was clever enough to have guessed who she was so quickly, after which she immediately lunged at Jing, shouting, "I'll kill you right here." That informs her that a divine soul appears to have been born within the last 10 years. Never before has the soul of a ninth-grade god manifested. The eagle has picked up a guy with a bow on his back and a horizontal scar across his face. Hong asks the man why he came, questioning if it was to save Ye Shin-ge. Such a violent impact, our protagonist crushed the ground beneath his feet. Still, he managed to withstand the girl's punch. At that moment, only, there was a thought in his mind. What powerful strength this girl possesses. After that, the girl decided to attack the master with a kick aimed at his leg, but she couldn't hurt him because he blocked her kick with his hand. In response, he decided to strike her with his sword, but his attack was also ineffective, because the girl managed to jump back and evade it. After many fruitless attacks, they retreated in different directions to catch their breath and strategize their upcoming attacks. Our teacher was already very tired. He hadn't anticipated that fighting the girl would deplete so much of his energy. He couldn't believe this woman was so strong. He had just used his heavenly eyes and souls to see through her body. Her development level was at least at the 8th level, but he also saw that he was just a normal person being manipulated. The girl practically stabbed our protagonist. At that moment, her sword stopped right in front of him. From Ye Shinge's eyes, he didn't even panic. It was as if he knew her next plan of action. They stood in the moonlight, and neither of them dared to move from their spot. The girl looked at him, holding the sword in front of his eyes, and asked why he hadn't dodged. He looked at the tip of the sword, in front of his eyes, and replied that there was no murderous aura coming from it, which meant she was harmless. Ying tried to move the sword away from his face, but Song replies that's not why he came. Zhehong then asks what he did come for. Sang Tong bowed and announced, the senior and young master are both out, while saying that the girl's strength was greater than his. If she had attacked seriously, he would already be a dead soul beneath her sword, but even though she is ruthless in her actions leave flaws in her. The protagonist continues to speak to her, saying that it doesn't look like she's committing murder. It looks like she's seeking death. At these words, the girl simply remained silent. Suddenly, she turned to him and retorted, asking why he wasn't taking action now that she had seen him. Why didn't he take action? Then came our hero's response. He replied that he understands the reasons behind her desire for death and murder, and therefore, he can help her escape this purgatory. These words made the girl stare at him intently, her trust in the protagonist clearly growing. He continued talking to her, asking if Shu Yitan had injected 3 forbidden poisons into her body. If she goes against the owner's will, the poisonous insects stung her. Despite her ability to neither live nor die, the girl was taken aback by his words and clearly sensed a trap, but it didn't stop her from asking Yes Xingge how he knew that information. She asked the master if he was the one who had sent her here to test her loyalty. Jing waved his hand nonchalantly and told her not to worry, assuring her that he definitely did not belong to her master's inner circle. Teacher. He could only see all the information about a person through his power. Then, he gently extended his hand, attempting to touch the girl's waist. To think that someone of Zhehong's rank would fight an ant who has exhausted their martial arts. He should just take care of this scoundrel himself. He picked up the girl, holding her in his arms like a princess, and whispered that he didn't want anyone to go through the same thing as his family again. All of this was being observed by Sang Tong, who was sitting in a tree. He watched them and cried, wiping his snot with a handkerchief, a sight that pleased him greatly. The scene shifts to Sang Tong's memories. He was truly a poor child, and although he clearly possessed the talent to better himself, he was captured by the Danyang County's most ruthless assassin organization, the Hall of Bloody Clothes. To control these captured children, Shui Ita implanted 3 poisons within each of them. If they disobeyed their master's will, insects would gnaw at them, making their lives worse than death. These children, racked with bone-deep pain, were gradually trained to become his puppets, his killing machines. That's what our Sang Tong was. However, Sang Tong failed an assassination mission at a cruel age, and only then was he released from his supposed enslavement. We see Sang Tong lying on the ground, near Yang's entrance, and someone who looks like Ye Xingje is coming out of an alley. Sang Tong was powerless, but he managed to open his eyes when someone approached him. It was Ye Xing, who greeted him and asked if he was alive. Sang Tong remained sitting in the tree and recalled that even after Ye Xingge discovered that he was the one from the blood garment room, he didn't hesitate to accept him. Although he calls him young master, he treats him like a brother. But somehow Sang Tong's mood, Song says, pointing to the tied-up guy. Next, we see Zhehong's face, deep in thought. It seems he didn't believe it, but then Zhehong bursts out laughing. He says he has changed, and he began talking about how he had come to this world for a reason. There are also tasks that need to be completed. He looked at the house as if he were asking, yes. Xingyi couldn't be blamed for what he was about to do. We entered the house where the young Master Ya was standing next to the bed where the girl he had been fighting lay. He asked her if she was ready, and the girl simply hummed in response. He placed his hand on her belly, warning her that it would hurt a little, and that she would have to endure it. He brought his fingers to his forehead and cast a spell, after which he activated his third eye ability. He began to scan her body, and a green pictogram emitted from his hand. Then, finally, the horrible and poisonous green worm revealed itself before him. He wasn't going to scare our protagonist. This worm is actually very poisonous. He took off his shoes and climbed onto the bed with the girl, saying that he needed to get higher. He sat on top of her, explaining that this made it easier to get rid of all the worms. The girl seemed excited, and Jing asked her to prepare for the worm removal process. Poisonous has begun. They were in a rather funny pose, and the girl asked if that worm was coming out. Proto said, yes, a little. He brought his fingers to his forehead again. So great is the burden of the soul's new life upon the body. His eyes could barely see clearly, and he finally caught 3 worms. He put them on a needle so they wouldn't crawl, but suddenly our hero fell ill. His face lost its sense. Zhehong's father approaches him from behind, places his hand on his shoulder, and tells him to leave this nonsense to the others. He's just finished cleaning. He looked sensible and began to fall on top of the girl. After a couple of seconds, he collapsed onto the bed on top of the lying girl, causing her embarrassment. He didn't even know what to do in such a situation. With Ye Xining hugging him around the waist, he practically wanted to hurt him because of the way she was calling his name. An idiot who actually wasted her energy on someone who only wanted to kill him, but she didn't do anything about it because she was grateful to him. The next morning, when he woke up, the guy realized that perhaps his current level of development was still insufficient to support the vital soul from the sky, so he fell asleep immediately last night. When he woke up, the woman was gone without saying goodbye, and if she was able to leave on her own, it means that her body is fine. It was a pity that he couldn't ask her about Shu's whereabouts. However, when he left the house, he received an unexpected surprise. As the girl stood in his yard, his attention was drawn to her hair, which had turned blonde. He explained to me that it must be because her tense nerves had finally leavenous. They had relaxed, and suddenly, her hair was like that. He also said that if our protagonist wonders why she didn't leave, it's because she has no place in this world. He approached him and asked if he could announce to the outside world that she had died by his sword. That would allow him to erase the title of Ghost Serpent. He wasn't ruthless and rejected her offer, adding that it would be better for her to leave at that moment. Jinka thought she had stayed there too, the golden tripod, so he'd better go back to his room and get a good rest today, his father adds before leaving. Zhehong turns to Song and asks, "What was that?" Return his kindness. But she had been bound by the 3 worms for so long and had finally found freedom. Could he really capture her again? Again, the girl thought that maybe the guy was afraid his identity as the bloody clothes room murderer would be revealed, causing him trouble. Sang Tong appeared out of nowhere, hanging from a tree, finding the spectacle like a soap opera. Jin asked him what he was doing there, and he climbed down from the perfectly tree and asked to be allowed to help. He began saying that there had never been a protagonist in this world without a shadow guard following them. If Yeshin plays it cool and rejects her, he'll surely regret it. The protagonist didn't even know what to say to such a suggestion and immediately decided to display his strongest secret skill, which he had learned in the bloody clothes room, a level 6 yellow electric sword. The scene transports the protagonist to a bamboo grove. He asks Ghost Snake, which was the girl's name, to take Uncle Yao and Sheer to a safe place. He, in turn, took Sang Tong with him to prepare for the upcoming family competition. The boys arrived at the post, Lin Yun sect, where Sang Tong had already managed to attract attention. One of the sect members asked the first who that dark-skinned guy was who dared to accept the mission of finding the 7-star spirit Yu. The second guy replied that Yu was born among miasmas and was surrounded by, "It's a shame, but tonight he can only play with his brother." We return to the room where the chained Yes Xingje and Sang Tong are sitting, when 6th level, body tempering realm, monsters to protect him. The third confirmed it, as he had also heard that none of the 6 people who had accepted the mission had returned alive. Then, a sect elder named Ling Yun appeared. He asked Jing if he truly wanted to accept this task because it was difficult, and for the past 7 months, no one had dared to accept it. Jing confirmed that he wanted to try. The old man replied that it was quite a bold statement, after which the elder started speaking flatteringly about Ye Xingge and Sang Tong. They were even suspicious about what would happen next. This old codger decided to send them on a mission right now and launch them into the air. Only the screams of our heroes could be heard. As they were flying, Sang Tong was vomiting a lot, but Ye Xingge was holding him by the neck, so the situation was somewhat under control. There, they are being received by the mountains. Lin Yun and Sang Tong became very dizzy along the way, and asked in Jinghe why their Ling Yun sect was still using physical teleportation. That one. He was taken aback by the statement and apologized for not having warned the elder that Sang Tong had not yet reached perfection. He gestured for him to come closer and to wash his face. While Sang Tong was washing his face, he was suddenly alerted upon seeing something in the water. A second later, a huge monster that towered to the sky emerged from the water, but surprisingly, this monster did not scare Sang Tong at all. On the contrary, he even turned to the young master and told him that a dark blue energy suddenly materialized around Yes Xing's. Sang Tong began to tremble at the sight of it. Xing stares intently at his savior, and he wanted fried fish while pointing at the monster. The master heard Sang Tong and began to hack at the monster. A moment later, Jinghe was back in the room, riverside, slipping his sword back into its sheath. Meanwhile, the monster was breaking into pieces in the air. Sang stood up with a stick and said that he was going to look for firewood, but the protagonist told Sang to rest well because they had a long trip tomorrow, and that he would bring the firewood himself. Suddenly, Yes Xingje noticed with his peripheral vision that danger was approaching. He rushed towards Sang, yelling at him to duck as someone shot an arrow in his direction. Sang Tong manages to dodge the threat, after which the arrow flies straight towards Jing. Fortunately, he manages to draw his sword and deflect the arrow. He soon turned to Sang, commenting that it was good his strength was recovering, since he had managed to dodge so skillfully. Sang Tong was lying on the ground, his face pressed against the dirt. He explained that the sudden movement had re-injured his lower back, and asked for quick assistance to get up. But Ching looked at him, contemplating whether it was a coincidence or if it was planned. After considering, He called one of his clanks to the side. Next, we see a young master helping Song Tong climb up the tree, explaining that if his body is so weak, he will probably send him back to the sect and continue on his own path. But Sang replies that he's fine, and that a simple bandage will suffice. Once he was settled near the tree, he says that it's all right. In response, Song Tong puts a finger to his lips, making a shh sound, and adds that the young master shouldn't worry. Turned to the master, asking if he intended to settle the score with the man who had attacked them, gesturing toward the mercenary who had been killed by. His sword was lodged in the tree, and Shinga questioned if he was the one Song Tong had been talking about. Song Tong couldn't believe what he was seeing. The young master was such an accomplished warrior. Shocked, Sang clung to Ye Shingi's leg as he tried to pull him away. That night, a storm raged, but it didn't stop our heroes from making their way through the mountains. The fact that the young master is dragging Sang along shouldn't bother you. The insolent boy even encouraged the master to run faster, as the thunderstorm lashed at them with increasing intensity. Shinge became enraged at such insolence and concluded that he really should have sent this coward back to the sect. It would have been much easier for him. Sang replied, "Well, what can you do about it?" The lumbar injury still hadn't disappeared, but suddenly his gaze focused on something at the top of the cliff. He saw a man attracting lightning, reflected in his pupil. It reflected an old man. According to Song Tong, this was a celestial development, the bearer of thunder. This isn't just the classic mentor of the #1 protagonist. This is from the deep mountains and ancient forests. The white-haired old man immediately began strangling Jing to stop him. Jing didn't understand what Song Tong was doing. He, in turn, pointed to the rock and stated affirmatively that the master's teacher was there. Sang Tong turns to look at something behind him. We hear a noise at the door. Time is running out. Crossing his arms, Sang Tong says that he still remembers the day. Yes, Xingzhe was perplexed. Well, friends, I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed this manhwa. The plot itself is quite interesting and intriguing. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling me what you liked most. To continue this project, we will gather 1,000 likes on this video. All the best, and see you soon. Arrived at a location featuring mountains visible in the distance, connected by bridges between isolated rocks, each topped with a chapel. We see an eagle, a year ago when he was saved. But if the young master doesn't cooperate, things will end miserably. It turns out that Yes Xingye is no longer a genius. His father and brother used him for their own benefit, abandoning him. His fiancée left him, and the only thing he has left is his little sister. Sang says, Tong, after all, these are the best conditions for becoming a great master, and Xingye doesn't seem to understand at all what Sang Tong is talking about. Sang Tong's hand reaches for Jing's bare chest. Something seems normal. The chained man's face turns red, wondering if he is about to be groped. And Xingye starts screaming and asks what his pupil is doing to him. In Song Tong's hand, it turns out to be a pendant with a woman with multiple arms. Holding the pendant in his hand, the scarred guy says, if he remembers correctly, this jade pendant is supposed to be a memory of Yes Xingye's mother. Following these actions, an evil smile spread across the captive's face. His eyes also changed, and he demanded in a certain tone, ordered him to return that thing to him. It was the only thing he had left of his mother, and if he dared to take it, he would die. With a swift movement, Song Tong smashes the jade pendant of jade against the cement floor. In the background, we see Yes Xingye looking alarmed. We see Yes Xingye closer, and there is complete disappointment on his face. There is emptiness in his eyes, is left speechless. Sang Tong replies that it had to be done. It wasn't simply destroyed to reveal the relic, it had to be destroyed completely. Next, we see, sent to perch on someone's arm. After reading the message, a man with long black hair declares that the soul of a 9th grade god is enough to consume him. Red smoke emerging from the broken pendant, which causes the blood lightning to form. Here we are, back where we started. A red lightning bolt strikes the house. Our heroes are in a situation where streams of red lightning are traveling along the chains, restricting Yes Xingye. Sang Tong notices this. Sang Tong yells at his master to look up, pointing at the lightning bolts. But it's already too late to do anything. We see the lightning strike. The lightning reaches Yes Xingye's hands, and he barely manages to look at it. Suddenly, a beam of blood energy pierces Yes Xingye. It must be incredibly painful, since the tied-up man starts screaming frantically. Sang Tong doesn't know what to do, but then Yes Xingye suddenly falls silent. Every trace of the lightning's pain and violence disappears from his face, as if it never even happened. Afterward, we see that Yes Xingye finds himself in an unknown location. So, The new chapter of our adventure begins with us seeing Yes Xingje somewhere. He is sitting on a levitating rock, surrounded by 4 large statues and even larger columns. From the hero's words, we learn that this is his soul temple. We then see Yes Xingge's face, filled with surprise. He says that his vital soul was stolen, so why was he able to enter the Palace of Souls space? A mysterious, translucent book appears in front of Xingge. What could this mean? Xingge is also surprised. He doesn't understand. If this is his soul space, what is this book doing? Everything is, literally, the enemy of the entire world and of all souls. A red fire ignited in the man's eyes as he contemplated the fact that this, here, he extends his hand towards it. After Yes Xingge touched the book, it glowed with a golden light, and its pages began to turn rapidly. A strong gust of wind blows Qing's hair and robe back. It appears that our protagonist has begun to awaken a new soul. Qing is very surprised, he is rendered speechless. Then, golden symbols began to appear on the columns. A mysterious voice proclaimed that his new soul is the best in the world. We can see that Qing is very excited. He can't believe what is happening, but not everything is that simple. New characters appear in the pages of the book, foreshadowing something bad. The previous joy had vanished. So, what happened? Qing was once again left speechless. Zhang throws the book to the ground and shouts that his new soul is only a top-tier human soul, not even close to being the best in the world. Suddenly, a woman's affectionate voice. He emerges from the book and says that Jing has nothing to worry about at the moment. Standing with his back to the book, Jing turns around to see who is speaking to him. Suddenly, a very beautiful white-haired girl appears from the book and says that he shouldn't be underestimated just because he is level 1, because in the future he may develop. This girl approaches Yes Xingge and languidly says, "Developing a soul isn't that difficult. All you need to do is gather the yang and nourish the yin." After that, a sword appears in Yes Xingge's hand. What happens next is that Yes Xingge brings his sword to the throat of the enemy was located east of the continent, within the territory of the Dian dynasty. It is imperative to inform all the strongest masters that they must. Girl who appeared. She is clearly shocked by what is happening. "Why are you showing aggression?" the girl asks. Yes, it seems to INE that what happened an hour prior hasn't exactly boosted our protagonist's confidence when answering the girl's question. Jing replies that he's never heard of a soul evolving, nor of spirits guarding it. He won't be tempted. The goddess wore an embarrassed expression and playfully bit her lip. We see the girl running her hand over Jing's face once more. Getting closer to his face, she tells him that she's starting to like him more and more. Even after losing everything and hitting rock bottom, his heart remains as strong as ever. He's very careful when making decisions and avoids falling into greed. Placing his hands on Yes Xing's shoulders, he added, "He truly is worthy of being chosen as the #1 vital soul of the proto-world." On his face, the mysterious girl finally says that it's time. There. Friends have already brought all the appropriate medicines. We have to use them, and he will begin to realize the power that our proto has acquired. We see how the goddess throws Jing to the ground. Afterwards, Qing only managed to ask her name, but he never received a response. We return to the dungeon again and see Sang Tong sobbing next to the bound Jing and telling him that he is finally back. Furthermore, we learn from their conversation that Jing has been in a coma the entire time. Do everything within their power to destroy it. Next, we are transported to a concrete room where we see a guy tied up, his hands and body. Everyone was very worried that he wouldn't wake up. Zhejian has managed to cleanse his soul. He is supposed to come and mess things up today. There is a third party lurking. Near our acquaintances, Jing shifts his gaze toward this person. We see a middle-aged man, completely covered in scars, with a short haircut. A smile appears on Yeshin's face. He says that it's Uncle Yao and asks how he managed to get here. After saying that, Uncle Yao reached into silent under his kimono, wondering what he had hidden there. A moment later, he took out a round object that emitted a yellow light. Yeshin says with surprise that it's a divine solar pill. Afterwards, Sang Tong kneels and says that this is the San Yi's most precious treasure in Qinyun City, the divine solar pill. Divine. Whoever takes it will not only break through 3 cultivation levels in a row, but will also heal their old wounds at the same time. Last night, Uncle Yao broke in the secret treasure room. After navigating deadly traps that killed and injured many, he finally obtained the treasure for Jing Loss. Tears welled up in Jing's eyes. Suddenly, the dungeon doors burst open, and the room was filled with warriors wielding katanas. Yong's voice could be heard in the distance. He was furious because Uncle Yao had stolen his treasure. Zhehong entered the room and said that Sang Tong had been on our side. But it was all right because he had renounced good for evil and was now loyal to Jing. Jihong would personally show him what hell was like. We see the aggressive face,